Welcome to Tuning Tuesday, episode 33.
33. It's been a couple.
It's been a couple.
It's been a couple.
With me, Justin, and Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Tuners at VMP.
One of a few now. So you were just doing a car out there on the dyno. That was a PD blower. I believe that was our blower on how much boost or what pulley combo?
79 millimeter pulley.
Mm-hmm.
And actually purchased from a customer, previous customer, upgraded by the new customer, and then brought to us again for tuning. And pretty basic 2012 with oil pump gears and a Gen 2.
Manual or auto tragic?
Auto.
Nice.
Auto with a 3800 stall FTI converter.
God damn.
And he just put a side leaf fuel system in it, so needed to check it out and dial it in for that. We did E35 swap on the dyno with the little jumper harness that we make that goes into the FPDM to turn the pumps on.
And for dealers, how much is that on the website? Or people that do a lot of it?
I think it's like $34.99 retail.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
But essentially, you disconnect your FPDM, you plug this into the wiring harness, and that turns your pumps on so that you don't have to do a tune update or anything to drain the tank.
Yeah, and then you just disconnect your fuel line, hook it up to a hose, to a 5-gallon fuel pail, swap away.
Awesome.
So,
what'd that car end up doing? Anything worth talking about?
He just bought the car, and we tuned it fairly conservatively. I think it made like 660, 670 wheel.
That's not bad through an automatic.
Through an auto.
Yeah.
In 90-degree summer weather.
Nice, nice.
Sorry, Dale Ettinger wants to know, why is Thor holding a supercharger?
I feel like people that watch the internet know why Thor's holding a supercharger.
Yeah, well, it's inside joke, outside joke, not that inside.
No, more internet joke right now.
Joe thought this was a better idea than a 20-pound sledgehammer that's outside in the shop.
I thought this was more fun.
Yeah.
It fits in his hand and everything.
Yeah. I think we should send Dale something for being the first one to point that out.
Was he the first one to point it out or the first one for us to mention pointing it out?
Carrie, can you tell us?
He's the first one that pointed it out.
Let's get Dale's t-shirt size and send him a t-shirt.
Sounds like a plan. Dale,
Easter eggs in the TV show?
Dale, I'll send you a message.
So
that way I can get your t-shirt, and I'll need your contact information for shipping as well.
So in reference to bringing it up, do you want to cover that now or cover that a little later?
And with that said, Andrew Vincent over on YouTube says, put the hammer to the Cobra Gen 3. Ha ha ha.
No, the Gen 3 is the hammer.
And he wants to know, do the kits actually come with a hammer?
Use the Gen 3 as the hammer.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a much better hammer.
Jeff Smith asked me last night.
In the James May way of doing things.
Yeah, Jeff Smith asked me last night, do the blowers really come with a ball peen hammer?
It's a nice stainless ball peen.
Yeah. Many uses.
Exactly.
Dale's like, woot woot, thanks.
No problem,
He's
kids.
excited.
So we've done a few things we had the 4th of July party here over the weekend, and we've been trying to get some of the shop projects knocked out throughout, well, I guess yesterday being the whole week so far, but at least starting at chipping away on some of the in-house projects that we've needed to get done for a little while now.
Yeah, I mean, everything from the big push to get stuff taken care of, everything from orders to tunes to, I think wait times for tunes are back down to pretty
reasonable.
Pretty reasonable, yeah. We're still a little bit longer than we'd like. And you mentioned that we're one of the few, but you are training 2 new tuners who have jumped right in and helped with the tuning workload at VMP. So that's cool.
Yeah, I know that we've been talking about doing like little employee bio things.
Yeah.
So the people watching, maybe you'll see some of those people come up in the employee bio things once we start pushing stuff like that out. One of the people is a familiar face that some of the people may recognize from watching our videos, and the other one probably not recognized from watching videos, but we'll surely see a little bit more of. So in reference to getting all that stuff out, we did a turbo S550.
Yes, you were tuning on a turbo car yesterday.
And one that Alex had previously worked on, but guy decided to do a full build on, and still stock cam, so still kind of a mild build in that sense, but not really too much in my eyes. Just turbo kit, upgraded turbos, air to water, stock cams, built short block, built trans now.
Yeah.
Just basic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just really stock parts that have just been upgraded with heavier duty parts to handle the horsepower.
Speaking of which,
And there goes
there's
the B-roll.
the build pictures and some of the build video stuff. Such a clean car. But in reference to that, car ended up making 1,000 on the dyno yesterday without really too much trouble, just dialing the boost controller and stuff like that. Really basic setup on E85, some nice precision turbos. In reference to that though, do you want to go into the topic of, just for the people that don't know, people, a lot of times when they hear of a power number, well, the only power number that's really ever advertised is peak power number. But there's, to us as calibrators and people in the industry, there's more than a peak power number in a setup. And not to knock a turbo setup, they're great. Obviously, it make great peak power, but if you just compare it to some of the PD blower setups that we've done here as of recent, like Track Attack and Grant's car.
Grant's GT500, Track Attack with the Coyote. Yeah, I mean, we thought it'd be fun to throw all the graphs up there, and we know the boost numbers for the different combinations. The blowers do take a little bit more boost, but you can make similar peak power numbers, and you have a little bit different area under the curve.
Exactly.
So Stephanie and I were actually talking about that when I was at the American Muscle Show.
Stephanie Wood with American
Stephanie
Muscle?
Wood, yeah.
Because she has, do you know what kit's on her car?
She's actually got a Hellion twin turbo kit.
Okay, so similar to Andy's kit.
Yeah, you know, stock motor, pretty low boost, nothing crazy like what Andy's doing. But and I think the standard turbos that come with it. Did Andy upgrade the turbos?
He upgraded the turbos.
Okay.
I can't remember what size they are offhand now, because he brought the car in with all the turbos and everything, and just kind of asked us to put it all on. It's not even like stuff that we ordered or spec'd. It was just kind of, here you go, make it work type stuff.
Right.
But I don't know if you have that graph there. We go, there's the graph of the 3 different setups compared.
Travis says he thinks twin 66s.
Twin 66s.
That sounds about right. Maybe a 66, 68 or something like that. But you can see at the line where I have the cursor, there's about, I want to say it's 300 pound-feet of torque difference for the GT500 versus the 5-liter at like 4,200 RPM, and then 250-ish horsepower. Does that look about right, Chris? Yeah, I wish I would have printed one out so I could have one here, but I just thought about doing the PDF. But
yeah,
what you can see there is that horsepower is about 80 to 100 horsepower delta between all the setups. Peak, but then you look at area under the curve and you can see where the PD blowers really shine down low and through the mid-range, where a turbo doesn't really make great power, which not surprisingly until it comes on the turbo.
Here comes the dyno graph, special delivery from Travis.
Yeah, so there you go. Well, this one is Track Attack versus Andrew Jewell.
So this is red and blue lines
Yep.
without the orange line.
Or the green one, but yeah.
Green
so
one.
you got torque up around 553 and 847 pound-feet on the 5-liter with a PD blower.
Now wait a second though. By about 5,500 RPM, the turbo has pretty much reached full spool and is then making 795 torque. But the PD blower actually makes it about 1,500 to 2,000 RPM earlier.
Yep. Which comes in handy if you're doing like a dig or a very low speed roll race.
Yeah.
That's not knocking turbos, it's just kind of the nature of the beast with the turbo setup. But I just thought it was interesting and be a fun point to bring up in the Tuning Tuesday stuff.
It's super interesting. You know, we even thought about, we were talking around the office about doing a video maybe of like talking about a turbo car versus a blower car, and you know, versus a GT500, which of course is a factory blower. showing some of the different technology and different points of view on them and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Paul came back and said precision 6466.
There we go. A good sized turbo setup for a set of twins on a small displacement engine.
Yeah, that's a lot of compressor. 2 of them.
It is. It is.
Because I know some of the single turbos, especially the class racing stuff, are as small as 72. And I think the jumping off point for a single is like a 76. That sound about right?
Yeah. And
So-
that's an interesting point about this is that this was at about 20 pounds on the turbos. I could have gone a little bit higher, but I know that the setup had previously made about 800. Figured he'd be happy at about 1,000. So I'll see if he wants me to turn it up a little bit more. I think I still got a little bit more headroom in the injector and the fuel system. But it didn't take a whole lot to do that.
So if I was picking a torque converter for this turbo setup, because this is an automatic car, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the numbers would be even a little bit stronger with a manual car. But if I was picking a torque converter for this automatic, what stall would you go for?
I'd probably go 3,500 or 4K, because at the lower boost settings, like where he's at 10 pounds, you'd be flashing up right around 4,500
Okay.
to peak boost per se, and then it'd kind of hold it. I think if you got a converter, I don't know that I'd get one for the max effort boost level, just because it took a while for the turbo to come up on that 20 pounds of boost, whereas at 10, it comes up to 10 pretty easily, but it just takes a while to build up to 20, which you can kind of play with that with the boost controller, but there wasn't really too much meat left on that bone in terms of getting those turbos to spool a little bit faster.
Yeah, I mean, boost controllers, they try to isolate the wastegate from any type of reading until it's reached the desired boost, and then it lets the
Lets the pressure
floodgates
go in.
go. Yeah.
Have we got any questions coming across there, Miss Carrie?
We do have some questions coming in. Chris is running the B-roll again real quick for the cars that you were just discussing, just from the standpoint that our audience can't see the chart that you're looking at right now. So we thought that we would be nice to run that again one more time.
Yeah.
But we do have a number of questions coming in. Let me go ahead and start reading some of these off for you.
Okay.
So first thing is Michael Snook over on YouTube says, thank God I need quality entertainment today. He's laid up in the hospital after double partial knee replacement surgery.
Oh, man. That
I told
sucks.
him, total pun intended, that I hope he's up and running around soon. Bob says, when is a Gen 3 for the 05 to 10 cars coming out?
Well, if you have a Roush 2300 supercharged car, you can swap the nose drives and put a GT500 Gen 3 on your car.
Yeah. And actually, if you have a 6-rib car, you don't even need to swap the nose drive.
Oh, that's right.
the
I'm
right
thinking
length.
of P51
Yeah.
and I think it's a 540RH that has this
The
dual belt 8-rib.
Dual belt, yeah. And unfortunately, there's not many of those out there.
There's not. That'd be the Roush Hammer and then P51B, correct?
Yeah.
Because I think P51A was the single belt 6-rib.
Yeah, 51A. And actually, you'd have to use a Terminator nose drive because the 2650 is a different nose drive than the 2300.
That's right.
Yeah, we actually, one of the guys at Roush, one of the engineers at Roush, CAD engineer, has one of those cars, 540RH car.
Nice.
And we were talking about putting a Gen 3 on it, but he ended up snagging a Gen 2 or Gen 2R housing.
Okay.
And he's just going to upgrade that. But to answer his question, we'd love some feedback from you on what a Gen 3 kit for 05 to 10 3-valve would be, what you feel like a good price range for that would be.
Realistically.
Keep in mind what our Gen 3 kits for the 5-liter run. Because we have talked about buying the knockdown kit for 05 to 10 3-valve one at a time from Roush to package with our head unit. But, I mean, 3-valve sales, we don't see a whole lot of that.
There's not a lot of meat on that bone.
Yeah, I mean, to give you an idea, to put it in perspective, the Cobra market, which we just came out with a blower for, is a fifth of the size of the GT500 in Coyote market for us. And 3-valve is smaller than 03 Cobra.
Yeah. That, and I saw something last night where someone said that we started with Cobra, and I feel like there's a miscommunication in our history with TVS superchargers. Because if I recall correctly, I wasn't around at VMP back then, but weren't we Gen 1 TVS on GT500 before we did Cobra?
So, what we tell people is the Cobra was the first as cast. That was the first time we tooled our own supercharger. But it was not the first time we had our own supercharger. So people take what you say and they kind of twist it around to make it
convenient,
mean whatever, to make it mean whatever they want it to mean. But we've been into the Cobra stuff was born out of the GT500 stuff. I got a TVS on my GT500, Ford Racing TVS on my GT500 back in '07, and I started thinking, man, maybe we should find a way to get these on Cobras, and then it went from there in 2010 and 2011. But yeah, the actual
kicking off point,
was GT500.
Okay.
And then a little bit, anyways.
Travis Crawley wants to know, he's curious about a charger for a 97 4.6 4-valve Cobra.
I'd look at Vortec or ProCharger for something like that. We don't offer anything for those. It's a different style cylinder head.
You could see head swap it.
Yeah.
But at that point, do a short block too.
Yeah. That car, there's a lot of limitations there to go up against. And a Coyote makes out of the box, like stock, what that car makes with a blower.
Yeah.
Dorian Johnson. Hey guys, Joe and VMP F-150 updates and 2018 updates.
So there actually is an update for Joe's F-150. Joe's F-150 got a set of MFP's phenolic spacers.
Oh, yes.
To go between the lower intake and the cylinder heads.
Did you put them on yet?
I did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I put them on Sunday night from, I started it at 9 and finished with the install around 11 and then drove the car around till like 11:30, 12 o'clock.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Any change in IATs?
Hard to say. It was raining. IAT2s seemed more consistent. My IAT1s were 110 to 115 degrees once it was up to operating temperature. And then my IAT2s were in between 88 degrees and 95 degrees the whole time. And the ambient at that time was around 78, 80 degrees.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And that's with our kit, we don't have any we don't have an isolated box, so the IAT1's kind of skewed because of engine bay air temperature.
Yeah.
So, for the sake of full disclosure, that's why IAT1s are higher than IAT2s. But you guys get the point. I feel like they made a difference. My wife has been driving the truck the past couple days while we're waiting on her car. So I only drove it around that night, but once I have it during the day, I'll let her take the Mercedes to work one day and Dad will lug it to and from work. See what the true difference is.
Jeff Scarlin wants to know, Coyote head cooling mod, gimmicky?
I don't know. Does Rebecca's 1,000 horsepower Coyote have a head cooling mod? Or do you see the need for it to have a head cooling mod?
It doesn't.
Do Cobra Jets have a head cooling mod?
They got a thermostat delete, but I don't think they have a head cooling mod.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those things. I don't think it can hurt anything as long as you don't screw it up.
I'm in the same boat. Where properly implemented, it won't hurt anything in my mind, but is it something that you need and is actually going to prevent anything specific from happening under normal circumstances? No.
Right.
Michael Webb says, what supporting mods do you need to make 1,000 wheel to the horsepower with Gen 3 15 to 17 S550?
What do you need to make 1,000 wheel horsepower with a Gen 3 S550? A boost, fuel, and long tubes.
Long tubes.
You need to be able to get the air that you're putting in back out.
Good exhaust, enough fuel. Mm-hmm. On E85, it requires a ton of fuel. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I had somebody was real gung-ho to do E85 on a stock fuel pump, and it's just like, that's not happening. Not safely this day and age with what we can make with a blower.
Yeah, and I have a shop I work with, and they're kind of in the Midwest, where they'll data log fuel pressure, and they inform the customers, hey, this isn't best practice. Can we physically do it? Yes, but really need to get a fuel system in the car. And usually it's one of those things where they do it for a couple months and put a fuel system in it.
Yeah, low boost, like 85 millimeter on a Gen 2 or Gen 2R. Don't want to try it on Gen 3.
On a known good fuel system.
Right.
On like a low mile car.
There's cars that'll max out the factory fuel system with an 82 millimeter pulley and a booster. It happens, unfortunately.
Exactly.
You could try to stretch it on a 6 rib. There's some people doing stuff like that, but an 8 rib and a 5% overdrive is the easy answer. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, 10,000 cc injectors, 1050s, 1300s.
Yeah.
Depending on, how much headroom you want to have. 15 to 17, the cams and the heads. I mean, they seem
to work a little bit better at that level.
Yeah, especially at that level, you start to notice a little separation, and the power curve is just better up top.
And at that level, you can manipulate boost and power very easily with what you're doing with cam timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, a fairly straightforward recipe. Is it cheap? I wouldn't say it's necessarily cheap to do it the right way if you want to run it on the 85, but it's possible.
Yeah.
Nick George says he's super happy with his Trinity TVS GT500 tune.
Awesome.
Ran 11.69 at 122.85 at 4 kDA.
Oh, even better.
He's got stock upper lowers, pulleys, stock throttle body, stock manifolds, and cats. Nice. I like safety, efficiency, less boost, more horsepower. What should he do next?
Less boost, more horsepower. So the only thing that's going to drop boost and increase horsepower is exhaust at that point.
Long tube headers.
And then just making the car more consistent since it's... Did I miss the part where he said year? I know he said he had a Trinity Supercharger, but was it a Trinity Supercharged 1112? Because what I was getting at with that is a heat exchanger to help keep the car more consistent.
Yeah.
That won't increase boost and that won't hurt power.
Yeah, heat exchanger, 170 degree thermostat.
And then set of long tubes on the car. Maybe throw an oil separator in there to keep your octane a bit more consistent.
I tell you, those low boost setups will, if you tell us you're running like a big pulley, we'll definitely look at the timing curve and see if we can shove more timing in it, depending on how the load calculation washes out.
Yeah, exactly.
Peyton Lucan says, when dealing with pre-emission coyote swaps, what gains will deleting the cats produce?
He said pre-emissions coyote swaps. So if they're using a Ford Racing control pack, that stuff already has cat temp control shut off, so you really don't want to put catalytic converters on a setup like that. Deleting the cats, it really doesn't increase power so much as it increases consistency on the setup. Obviously, again, if you're using a control pack, you don't have to worry about consistency on the setup because the cat temp, flange temp, and all that stuff's already shut off in the cal.
Yeah. I mean, I think you might see like 7 to 10 rear wheel horsepower from not having that exhaust restriction, but for what a Coyote makes, that's not really that big of a change. And
or is that dyno variation, pole to pole?
And it's only going to be above 5,000 RPM. It's not going to pick up anything down low.
Yeah.
What Chris Stanley says, what's up VMP? Any updates on when the 160 millimeter throttle bodies will be shipping?
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum.
We were just having a meeting about that.
We were.
Still working it out. Progress is being made, but baby steps at this point.
A lot of moving targets this time of year between getting all the regular work and orders out and doing R&D
and we got 5 or 6 shop cars out there that need tuned on the dyno.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act, as I'm sure people watching can imagine.
Joe and I have been dividing and conquering on R&D projects.
Giggity.
So.
Bob Philstein says, what pulley should I run on pump gas with a Gen 3 on an S550?
88 or 92.
The bitch will be wicked with that big ass pulley.
Mm-hmm.
And the 88 and 92 have special speed grooves.
They do. They have the
scalloping, we call it.
Yep, and if you You may need to remove your hood liner, depending on how happy your setup is overall, especially if you're running a 92. That the speed grooves will be meat slicers for the
hood liner.
Yeah.
Yeah, just get, and our supplemental instructions for 15 up say to get rid of the hood liner anyways, because it's just really close on the blower, so just ditch that sucker. The story behind the speed grooves is we had to make such big pulleys for the Gen 3. I'm like, these things are going to look ugly. So I got with the engineer, and I'm like, what can we do to just dress them up? It's not too hard to actually produce and machine. But each one of them costs about $5 more to make to add that detail to them.
They look cool, though.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Mark says you guys... Oh, Mark has a great suggestion, and I'll look into it. He says that we should publish this as a podcast on iTunes.
Oh, yeah.
So I can definitely look into some options on publishing as a podcast and see what we can do to get it out there. If people find benefit in something like that, please chime in and let me know. You can send also if you have ideas on how we could go about that or easy ways to do so because you've done something similar. Let me know as well. I can give you my email address. Actually, I'll go ahead and type it here in the chat. And any ideas that you have for future shows and or content, or as Mark pointed out, podcasts, by all means, send it to me, and I'm happy to research whatever we can do. AR Torres wants to know, is there any real difference in power between 80 millimeter and 87 millimeter throttle bodies?
I suppose he's talking about a naturally aspirated setup in the stock throttle body versus GT350.
GT350 is 87, yeah.
Yep, so every dyno test I've done, A to B, a true A to B, 80 millimeter versus 87 millimeters, no discernible difference in power in a 5 liter.
Yeah, I remember you did that a while back.
That was like, what, almost 2 years ago now?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, we've been living with the GT350 for 2.5 years now.
It's just been that 01 Cobra where people that have them love them. People that don't know about them just continue not to know about them because they're not really doing anything too crazy. Waiting for the Terminator to come back.
God.
I always say his name incorrectly. Is it Einar or Einar? Says, what is your thought on aftermarket shifters in the S550? Also, what is your feeling for one-piece drive shafts and if they are worth it in an NA car, such as performance gain?
How about I take one and you take one?
Go for it. Take the shifter, I'll take the drive shaft.
Okay, so the shifter's nice if you like something a little shorter throw, a little more precise. I had one in my GT350, I had an MGW. It was very short throw, like it was, you know. So it's just personal preference. I mean, there's good quality stuff out there, you know, can't hurt.
In reference to the drive shaft question, do I think there's any perceivable performance gain by putting an aluminum drive shaft on a car? If there is, it's very marginal.
Talking really freaking marginal.
Yeah, and that's technically a reduction in rotating mass helps the rate of acceleration of the total drivetrain, but at the end of the day, power I think helps a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the end of the day, is it a good idea to do a one-piece drive shaft, something a little bit lighter weight than stock? Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you shave 15, 20 pounds.
Exactly, that, and you don't have to worry about a two-piece drive shaft coming apart or your center support bushing taking a crap and causing a clunk or the excessive drive shaft run out at speed. So it's not a bad idea, but if you're looking for a performance gain, I feel that there's money spent better elsewhere. But if you're looking for a little bit more safety for drag racing, or if you're going to put a radial on it and go drag race a manual car, I think it's definitely a good idea to get a single piece drive shaft in there. AKDMBF,
MB, sorry, For better foot feel, tune driver demand table or lower pedal position watt start.
Depends on where you want that better feel to come into play.
Both those things kind of like, I don't know, they work a little differently.
Yeah, and I don't really like doing either to improve pedal feel. Because at the end of the day, I want my car to feel like it's making more power at a lower pedal position. All right, install JMS Pedal Max.
Yeah.
Or command more pedal.
I mean, with the bigger throttle bodies, like right off idle, the first couple columns of the driver demand in the open loop feed forward and the effective throttle area, there's definitely something to be said for that being accurate for tip in right off idle. But there's just too many. If you just make the pedal go, make the car go wide open throttle at like a quarter pedal, there's just too many other things you're screwing up, calculations you're screwing up.
That and it kind of messes up the whole fail-safe portion of the cal, changing the watt entry position.
Yeah, and then you've got open loop criteria, which this is retarded, but this is the way it is. Open loop criteria on a 5 liter is based on pedal position, not throttle position.
Yeah.
So
if you have your watt start set too low and your open loop ETC set too high and your OP cam timing set too high, then you're kind of screwing yourself.
Yeah, and you know what? I shouldn't even call it open loop. It's power enrich. It's where you add more fuel, you run a richer lambda, and you can tolerate more spark, and you make a lot more power, probably about 20% more. Because you can run a motor at 14.7 to 1 at wide
You
open
absolutely
throttle.
can.
It doesn't tolerate any spark.
Yeah.
It tolerates like 5 to 8 degrees less spark. And that's how all the big trucks are from the factory.
Closed loop.
at
Hovering
watt.
around stoic at watt.
When I say big trucks, I mean shit that shouldn't have a gasoline engine in it.
Yeah.
Like an F-250 with a 6.2 liter or a V10.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what keeps them from goes from like 9 miles per gallon to like 12 miles per gallon is the open loop delay.
Oh God.
I've been playing with this stuff for years and making gas mileage tunes on trucks like that and stuff.
Just a funny F-Body Nation. Paul says you guys should make a blower for LS motors. Wink, wink.
We know some people. They were here last week.
I was gonna say we know some peeps.
Dave Murdoch chimed in. He says he loves how his car runs now.
Awesome.
Um,
Is that a tune you did at Shelby Fest?
I believe so.
Yeah, cool.
His name sounds familiar.
Bob Philstein says, can I run E85 with the 18 manifold on my 17 full bolt-on S550?
FBO, hashtag.
Oh God. Oh God.
FBO.
Can you? Absolutely, you can. Just get with whoever's tuning the car and see what they want to see in terms of setup on the car before running the 85. I know on a setup like that, if I was tuning it, I'd want to see 47-pound injectors in it.
I mean, to use the full rev range of the Coyote, which, I was thinking about this yesterday. Remember when we were like in high school and VTEC was cool?
VTEC was never cool in high school.
Oh, okay. Well, it must have been the people.
You were in high school a little bit earlier, so maybe.
Okay.
Were you like in the Prelude type times? Like
Yes,
92, 93 Preludes
the
had
Prelude and actually the tuner in
CRX.
training and technician, Mike was all into that stuff. I got to get the 2.2 swap or whatever. There was the
H22.
H22 out of the minivan. I
H22,
don't know.
B16, all that stuff.
But anyways, a Coyote revs as high as a VTEC engine from back in the day.
Yeah.
And to support that high RPM, you need big fuel injectors. So to get to the point of this conversation, 47-pound injectors are ideal for E85 on a naturally aspirated Coyote.
Faux show.
Todd Warren says, I see somebody hates FBO as much as I.
We share your pain, Todd.
Hey, Todd, thanks for watching, man.
Dave chimed back in and said, I have the 15 Roush Orange.
Oh, we did the 100 octane tune on his car here at the shop probably 2 weeks ago now.
100 octane, sweet.
Yeah, like 93 mixed with, let's say it was Sunoco 260 GT. But he runs it either that or the Sunoco 100.
Hey, if anybody from VMP is watching, go grab a can of Boostane from the shipping area and bring it over here.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of people watching, so let's
Oh,
see who
man.
gets it here first.
Should we give them a free T-shirt if they get here first?
I don't know, maybe.
They
Maybe
work
we could
here,
give
they
them
can get
Thor's
free-
hammer.
Yeah, right.
Thor's hammer. Sorry.
Doesn't have ethanol.
This is some new stuff that we're stocking, which is great for 100 octane race tunes. And they've actually got a convenient little mixing chart back here. So this is environmentally friendly according to this logo right here. And if I hold this up, can you zoom in on the mixing chart?
Yeah.
Are we zooming in on over here, or?
I think he's.
There we go. So, starting fuel octane, final octane.
It's a handy little chart there.
32 ounces of Boostane per container, and then depending on the amount of fuel you treat is the amount of octane you get.
Nice.
I mean, I'm going to take the average range here. I'm just going to say put a whole can to a tank of gas.
Yeah.
A Mustang tank is 16 gallons if you run it dry. Don't ever do that.
It'd be nice if they had a 15-gallon marker
Yeah.
right there. Although, for the sake of argument, only half the saddle will get the fuel additive. So
Till it mixes.
yeah.
The jet pump runs a good amount,
Okay.
and it sucks it over, and then it falls back over the saddle. So Joey pointed something out good. Put the Boostane in the tank before you fill it up.
That'd be much better.
That was like, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. There won't be any room in the tank if you put the Boostane in after you fill up.
Yep.
So we're keeping this stuff in stock, and we're highly recommending it. We're running it in the truck. I think we're tuning one of the shop cars with it next week. Actually,
Yep.
later this week.
Yeah. Once the headers get done on that car.
Donnie was working over lunch putting long tube headers.
Donnie working over lunch.
Yeah,
Man.
I know. Putting long tube headers on Dave Duncan's car.
Hot damn.
So it's getting a little bit of headers. So Gen 3 Coyote car, 88 millimeter headers and Boostane. Guesses on what it's going to make. Let's
Put it to the court of public opinion.
Yeah, put it to the court of public opinion. You guys and women saw the red car that made 700 rear wheel, and that car had a JLT intake on it. So Dave Duncan's car has a Roush intake, but it's getting upgraded to a JLT, so it should theoretically make about 690, 700. It made 670 before with a Gen 3 and 88 millimeter pulley. It's getting long tubes, and it's getting a Boostane tune. It's getting some oil separators and
Hood
some
struts.
hood struts.
All the stuff.
Yes, and then Joe's going to work his magic on the dyno.
So someone wants to know how the Boostane worked with the spark plugs and O2 sensors.
Good question. I suspect it works much better. We will be pulling some plugs out after long-term usage of this product, but if you look at the bottom of a can of Torco, there are metallic additives in it, which I suspect end up on your spark plugs. And this, in a scientific terms, is a completely homogeneous mixture.
Homogeneous.
Homogeneous.
I think that's how
the
you
word
say
I
it.
was looking
I
for.
think
That's a big word, so I have to pronounce it slowly.
Well, it happens.
Homogeneous. Yes. So,
What does it smell like? You gonna smell it? Oh, it's got a safety cap.
it smells like gasoline.
There's gonna be memes of you huffing Boostane now.
We're getting some comments coming in. 770 horsepower, 785 for the win.
Hey, that guy that needs the person that said 770, they need to come work here.
Yeah.
Slab Shack says 732.
I like his reasonableness, Slab Shack. Thank you.
Andrew says 765.
765.
Grant says 735.
Grant, I know you are. See, I wonder if Grant's jealous that Dave's going to have a car that's potentially faster than some of Grant's cars.
Chuck says 575.
It's possible.
Big Daddy Chucker says, I want 1,500 to the wheels. Let's get it done.
Get her done.
Get her done.
All right, we got to make an adapter plate to put 2 blowers on something.
And then we
Does
got
anybody have a key in their
740.
pocket?
I left mine on my desk.
You let me struggle with this for this long, Chris. Sorry, Carrie, continue.
You're okay. Alex, anyway, 740.
Don't cut
Poor
yourself.
boy says 731. I'm looking here to see what else, what other guesses may be coming in.
Joe, this is like finely aged liquor.
Dale says hood
You don't see
structure
any
like 20
precipitate in
rear
there?
wheel now, right?
What was that,
Laughing.
Carrie?
Dale was
It
kidding
is.
around saying hood structure like 20 rear wheel, right?
Yes.
Dave Murdoch
thinking
says
60 rear wheel.
725. And the guy that made the guess at 770, he says he'll send in his resume. So,
Your test for your first day at the job is going to be to make 770 on that car.
Genio Davis says 727. Dale says 728.
So I guess we're going to have to publish the results next week on the
Gary
show.
says 791. Jason 733.
Oh, man.
You have some questions here about Boostane. How does Boostane compare to 110 octane racing fuel?
I think at the end of the day, a dedicated race fuel will always be the better answer. But I feel like if you're in a situation where race fuel's at one gas station and it's 25 miles away and you can't always get to that side of town, or your racing is at spur of the moment type things to where you can't plan a week out to be like, all right, I got to go fill up with race gas. I can't drive the car because I don't want to burn $13 a gallon worth of fuel. I think that for the everyday consumer, Boostane makes more sense. But if you're strictly a racer,
Track car.
race fuel's the better answer.
Yeah. I mean, with race fuel, you're getting a batch of hydrocarbons mixed to be race fuel. 100%.
That is ideally very consistent.
Yeah. Now, pump gas, you've still got the pump gas component in there, which for the power levels we're making these days is just so marginal.
Especially with the compression we're running these days as well. Like
Yeah.
on a 11 or 11 2-to-1 Coyote or an 18, which is an even worse of a situation.
We'd rather see you use something like this more often and have a consistently good, well-performing, safe tune than only be able to run race gas once in a while with a bunch of headache.
We have about 10 minutes left, but we did start a little bit late.
Okay.
So we might give them a couple extra minutes, but we have a bunch of questions, so
Okay.
I'd like to kind of get
Yeah,
through
let's
some
run
of
through
these.
questions.
Um,
I need to wash my hands.
Joe says, just tuning in, any update for the Cobra cold air intake that you've been working on, and when can we expect it for availability?
I talked about that this morning too.
Yeah, it was hard to get a lot of updates last week from our manufacturers because of the holiday in the middle of the week. Even though I think I was working all week.
My dentist was closed all week. That was fun.
Yeah, but to that point, they've completed the tooling and they're supposed to be making first articles and air shipping them over here. So
Nice.
Hopefully we'll have a handful of those. The thing that I want to bring up, Carrie, that's important is if you're going to go for mid 700s on up on a Gen 3 on a Terminator, you're going to want this cold air. I don't want to knock JLT stuff, but if you put them side by side, you can see JLT was made for a stock style supercharger, and this thing is just so much bigger.
That, and we made it to support our blower.
Right.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
we can't really expect every manufacturer that we worked with to make a specific product specifically for our stuff.
Especially as low volume as the Cobra
Yeah.
is.
Matt says, would you guys recommend supercharged or turbo setup for the A10-18 cars?
Bom, bom, bom. The great debacle of Pepsi versus Coke.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, obviously we're supercharger people.
Yeah, but I like to think we're not idiots either. So if your goal is a massive peak power number on a race fuel or a billet motor, I cannot argue with a turbo.
Yeah.
Not to say that a PD blower setup cannot make a good peak power number, but a really fast race car, turbo will do well.
And I think in 2018, A10 changes the game a lot. Like, so the torque converter companies, I don't even know if they're going to do torque converters for the A10 because it's all gear ratio is what makes that transmission work. Torque converters are less and less important with 10 forward speeds. I mean, gosh, how long is it going to be till we get rid of the torque converter? Because all the
Direct couple.
Yeah.
Or DCT style.
Yeah, but it's really going to depend on your goals, your budget. There's some things that are easier about a turbo, but harder in other ways.
Yeah, I think packaging on blowers is a bit nicer, but that's not to say that a well-built turbo kit is going to be packaged in a bad manner. But I think from a get in, start it, drive it, most of the blower setups are going to be more user-friendly than a turbo setup is. But that's not to, again, not to say a turbo setup can't be get in and drive it.
Turbos can be badass.
Yeah.
A couple of people have asked updates on the 18 intake manifold harness, and when will they be available? We were talking about that today too.
Yeah.
So that actually checked out before the show.
Nice.
So those are in production, and we're just waiting for them to come in.
So should we just start having our meetings on Tuning Tuesday? Because like everything they've asked so far has been in our meeting.
Yeah, we covered that in our team lead and department manager meeting this morning.
Slapshot came in and said, I've seen Rebecca outrun twin turbo cars at Texas 2K.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. Like I said, nothing against blowers and nothing against turbos, but...
we like horsepower.
Yeah.
Go fast. George says, 13 Mustang twin turbo, Mantic twin clutch on the car already. Car makes around 700. It's becoming difficult to go in or out of gears. Any ideas what it may be? He says, like, even taking it out of reverse has to be forced.
That could be slave cylinder. It could be warped clutch discs, depending on how it's been used or abused. Any thoughts, Joe?
I mean, it sounds like the clutch isn't completely disengaging. So you kind of covered the two big things where it could be slave cylinder issue, or it could be the pressure plate is no longer completely flat. It has a little bit of run out and it's therefore dragging a little bit. Or you could have I don't know how you would induce an air pocket into the system and kind of lose your bleed there, but I mean, it could be a thing where it was never bled properly to begin with, and now it's starting to have issues.
If you don't bleed that stuff properly to begin with, you drag the clutch, you heat it up, you warp it, you do who knows what, and it's all downhill from there. You have the beginnings of a race car in a very small way, so take it out, take it apart methodically, figure out what went wrong, fix it, put it back together.
Yeah.
I just want to throw it out there because we're coming up towards the end of the show, is if you guys like these broadcasts, make sure you like it and share it. Give us thumbs up. I haven't seen any happy faces in a little while going through the feed. So,
no happy faces is a sad face.
I know, right? Angry faces or anything.
Angry faces.
Make sure you guys like and share and do the usual. So Robert says, what power or boost level do you recommend going to an 8-rib setup typically? Or what parameters do you say to start worrying about needing to upgrade?
Pulley size.
Yeah.
So you get down around a 72 to 69, there you start to come up on what a 6-rib can handle. Now I was talking to John Hartman this morning, and he's on like a 63 with a 6-rib. And he's on a stock diameter balancer, and he's doing like the hasty bracket and everything else, and he's got our HD tensioner, which has more spring tension in it, so he's kind of making that work.
I think we could take this to the next level and break it down to what it really is that causes the need for 8-rib, and that's drive torque. So if you look at the Eaton spreadsheets or maps on the blowers, you have drive speed versus torque required to spin the supercharger versus pressure ratio. So it's kind of like a 3D map of what puts you where. So I don't know, pulley ratio is part of it, but I think pressure ratio is also something we're talking about, because if you're in Colorado at 7,000 feet, you can run a 63 without many problems at all, because you're not requiring a whole lot of drive torque at that pressure ratio.
Yeah, I mean, the blower's spinning fast, but it's not making a whole lot of boost. So and you know, you get people that are like, well, I can just make the 6-rib work. Well, you run out of traction. The belt can only transmit so much horsepower. The belts can actually snap if they're attempting to transmit too much horsepower. So it's a combination of things that get worse and worse the smaller you go in pulley size. You have less surface area. You're trying to spin the blower faster. It's consuming more power.
It's like a car. You can't put an all-season on it, a 235 all-season, and expect it to hold like a 275 ET Pro.
Yeah.
You got to get that grip.
Kellen Stone is chiming in. He says, hey guys, I'm switching to a slick to get my car to hook. Which would be better for my car, stiff wall or soft wall slick? Thanks.
Don't put a slick on it, just put good shocks on it, Kellen. I had this conversation with somebody last night. I'm like, good shocks cost what about 2 or 3 private track rentals cost, not counting fuel, time, expenses, ice, all the other things that we do when we get our cars ready to go to the track.
Yeah, and you could Band-Aid it with a slick, but at the end of the day, that's not the root cause of your problem.
The only people that I want to see on a slick are manual cars and no prep racers and street racer types, like Chad.
Dave says that guy on the left can tune a 735 to wheel on a 15 Roush.
Wait, which one?
My left or your left?
Hey.
Esteban says, I know that this has probably been asked multiple times, so in order to keep it going, can I fit a 75mm pulley on my Roush blower with a BAP and 1000 injectors on 93, or would I need octane booster, maybe race gas? How much power should I be reaching with this, about ballpark range?
So this is a very multifaceted question.
So he's got the fuel.
He's got the fuel, but is this a 11 to 14 Roush Phase 1 setup with a closed air box where running a 75 is feasible because you're restricting the inlet airflow? Or is this a 15-17 car with a Roush cold air or a JLT or a PMOS on a 75mm pulley?
Something that'll kind of help that is that the Roush closed air box for 11 to 14 is very, very dead. There's very few people are using that.
15 to 17.
15 to 17. Okay, so he's got a better cold air.
He's got a better cold air. He's got a
Roush
better blower.
cold air.
Yep. Yeah, so he's got all the things there to make good airflow on a 75mm pulley. In my mind, the only way that is 100% okay to do is way up in the sky, like 3,500 feet or above.
Yeah. 93 is just too inconsistent to be putting that much boost to it that early on. And keep in mind, a 2.3 TVS with a 75, it hits very hard early on, so you make a lot of heat, a lot of pressure early in the curve.
You'll get the devil's advocate people out there that are like, well, I'm tuned on a 75 on 93. Yeah, that's fine. Your tuner has to pull a little bit more timing out to get it to do that. You can do it with boost or you can do it with spark.
A bunch of questions coming in, sorry.
It's all good.
Peyton wants to know, can you discuss the difference on a TVS versus twin screw?
In what way?
What are the
Both
differences?
PD superchargers.
TVSs are pretty badass technology-wise now. I mean, Eaton is on their 7th or 8th generation. They own a bunch of patents. The 2.3 TVS is patented. The 2650 TVS is patented. There's a lot of different versions of twin screws out there because they all started with Leichholm and then they went and made their own versions.
Yeah.
And there's always some type of trade-off. It just, I mean, size, we've found that size doesn't matter as much as people think it does. There's just so much that goes into it. Technically, twin screw has internal compression. A TVS doesn't have much internal compression.
Because they are blowers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's
that's
a very long conversation in terms of the differences without getting into the weeds.
Yeah.
Like Justin said, internal compression in a twin screw versus supposedly no internal compression in a root style blower, but sometimes that doesn't work quite that way.
Let's go to the next question and run through these.
Yeah, Peyton says, what's your favorite mufflers for Coyotes?
GT500 mufflers.
Works for me.
Kat says it would be pretty rad for a VMP history movie.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bah,
Yeah.
Bob says, should I run 160 millimeter if I want to make 850 on an S550 to the wheel?
Depends on the rest of the setup.
Yeah, if it's cammed, feel free. If it's not cammed, you might have a bad time. But
fuel boost, but because you can make 850 on a twin 67.
yeah, I've done it before.
Yeah.
Many a time.
Chad chimed in and said he really likes these shows. A lot of people have great questions and they get great answers. Team VMP for the win.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Chad.
it, sir.
Chuck wants to know, nitrous plus VMP blower, is that a good idea?
It's not a bad idea.
Bring it.
We know a couple guys.
Yeah.
Dale says, I want to see the progress on the VMP 18 GT with the Roush blower. I know I sound like a broken record.
Hey, I think
We can go take a picture of it out there sitting underneath.
I think me and Chris are shooting that video tomorrow. It's going to be interesting.
That works.
07 GT500 swapped into a 07 GT. I had the VMP heat exchanger, both JLT catch cans, and 91 octane. I also had the bigger VMP tank. Every pass was 122 miles per hour, even with 3 passes in 15 minutes. He's going to do headers next.
That's actually pretty
That's a
awesome.
consistent setup.
Yeah, that's why we make big ass heat exchangers.
Yeah.
Court says, just rebuilt my wife's motor and her 083 valve with Manley forged rods and pistons, stock crank and cams. Currently has Roush M90, but looking to upgrade with a VMP blower and push the motor for higher horsepower. What do you recommend for the blower and other supporting mods?
I'd say it depends on his sealing. Where do you want the sealing to be? I think the 1.9 is a great pump gas blower.
I mean, cost effectively wise, the 1.9 bolts on, they're on sale for $19.99 right now.
And the rest of your kit works with it, so you don't have to buy a completely new kit.
He just spent all this money on building the engine. Pop a 1.9 on there, run a 69 millimeter pulley. You can make some power.
Yeah.
Glenn says, at what 60-foot have guys seen rear end damage in an S197 auto car? I'm currently in the 1.38 to 1.42 range.
You're in the range. That's axle twisting. That's getting down there. That's. I mean, you could probably live down there for a little while, but.
At what point did Rebecca start breaking rear end stuff?
So, I can tell you that acorn lug nuts will twist the studs at that level because you can't get them tight enough. You really need to run studs, and
shank style studs.
Yeah, shank style
with like a 3-inch. Would that be 9/16 stud or?
So
3/8?
You can run 9/16 studs, but if you're gonna build it, you might as well just jump up to 5/8.
Okay.
At Rebecca, actually, we built her axle when her car was still going like high 9s.
Okay.
But I will tell you, we built it, and the car is an 8.0 car, and the rear end never breaks, hasn't been touched.
And that's
works
gun drilled 35 spline axles.
33 spline.
33.
Because it still has a true track in it. You can still turn corners, drive it on the street. It'd be kind of handy if it goes on the Hot Rod Power Tour, which we're talking about, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
That's nice.
So
yeah, think about doing some axle stuff and some wheel stud stuff.
Yeah, depending on what you want to do, I think we've got a set of axles in the shop that were returned that you could have cheap.
And have your tubes welded.
Yeah.
Beards, Beer, and Bacon says, Joe, beard game on point as always.
Oh man, beard game on fleek.
You need to step it up to Travis level.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Jeff says, oil separators gimmicky. Have you ever experienced detonation because of oil contaminated intake charge? Added separator and problem solved. After intake system unfouled/cleaned? Question mark.
I don't know. I haven't ever experienced detonation due to excessive oil in the intake.
It's something that's hard to directly correlate oil in the intake to detonation in the dyno pole, or even just a pole in the street, because it's like, all right, well, is your fuel quality bad or is that? And there's not many guys that on the same exact tank of fuel on the same day with the same dew point and all that stuff that will go out and A to B it under the same IED conditions to see, did cleaning this have the direct effect of doing this? And I feel like that's where people kind of get skewed when they're trying to do their A to B tests, when they're really like A to T. They're two completely different sets of conditions.
I mean, I would say oil separators fall into the category of can't hurt, but should you go to the trouble of like cleaning your intake and all kinds of other stuff?
And If it's a Lightning 0304 Cobra, older GT500 where everything's gummed up and it probably has a reasonable amount of oil everywhere, I think it's absolutely a good idea.
If it has 100,000 miles, too.
Exactly. If we're talking a 15,000 mile Coyote, I don't think it's worth getting the oil out of every surface, but I do think it's certainly worth putting an oil catch can on the car.
And something I'll say about oil separators, they still let some oil through.
They do.
They're effective to a degree, but there's still some oil missed.
Yeah.
Scott wants to know, does a car that runs E85 have to change its oil more often than running 93 octane?
I don't know. Does the Ford factory manual for flex fuel vehicles recommend a higher service interval based on the ethanol usage? Not that I'm aware of.
That is a good point. Now, I would say if you have big injectors with a not perfect spray pattern and you're in an extremely cold climate,
where the car is an open loop a lot and you suspect that the car is rich when it's an open loop?
Yeah, then I don't want ethanol hanging out in my oil. But
then I think if you bring your car up to temperature a lot and boil all that stuff out of the oil, I don't think it's nearly as much of an issue.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you're running a setup that doesn't have a thermostat, it never really goes over 200 degree CT, something like that, then certainly change the oil more often.
What time is it, Carrie?
It's 2:39.
2:39. We take one more question and then we finish up.
Okay. Nickel White says, any suggestions on rear wheel hub bearing assembly upgrade? I have upgraded axles and suspension and have already broke my stock hub assembly.
On an S550? Mm-hmm. Chalk that up to you know what.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how he broke the hub assembly. Was it like a cage failure, or was it I don't know. I mean, you could look into doing a ceramic bearing upgrade in there. There's a company out in California that does them.
The fastest IRS car I know of is probably Sheldon Lewis. I mean, he's still 60 foots. For how fast the car is, his 60 foots are kind of slow. I think they're in the mid-1.2s maybe. Mm-hmm. I don't know that it's gone teens, but maybe he knows something about, if he's upgraded something or he's broken something. Mm-hmm. I know the Watson IRS for the S550 uses a Corvette whole hub assembly, which is supposed to be stronger.
I wonder what the Ford GT hub assemblies are. If they're carryover from Cobra or not, because I'd imagine with the top speed that car is rated for, that they'd use a different hub bearing.
I hope so. Well, I think that's it for today. We'll try to get to some of your questions, additional questions, after the show.
Yeah, there's quite a few questions still.
And don't forget, like Carrie said, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, and share with your friends. We will see you next time.
I thought Thor was going to go pound on the Mustang over there.
Boom, boom, boom.